The year is 1172. In the grand hall of her Poitiers palace, Lady Eleanor of Aquitaine, a woman of unparalleled influence and intellect, found herself captivated by an unsettling trend. It began subtly, a grotesque face peering from the corner of a psalter, a monstrous hybrid lurking in the borders of a book of hours. These were the creatures of the margins, the beasts of the borderlands, and they were multiplying. Illuminated manuscripts, once solely the domain of sacred text and pious imagery, were now increasingly populated by these fantastical beings. Hydras with multiple heads, griffins with razor-sharp talons, and basilisks with deadly gazes sprawled across the vellum, challenging the serenity of the scriptures they accompanied. Are these mere embellishments, delightful distractions for the eye? Lady Eleanor questioned her assembled scholars and courtiers. Or do these monstrous visages hold a deeper meaning? What anxieties do they reflect? What truths do they conceal? Among those present was Brother Thomas, a Benedictine monk known for his diligent scholarship and unwavering devotion. Lady Eleanor recognized in him a keen intellect and a thirst for knowledge, qualities she deemed essential for the task ahead. "Brother Thomas," Lady Eleanor began, her voice resonating with authority, "I task you with a quest. Travel to the monasteries and courts throughout the land. Examine these illuminated manuscripts, consult with the illuminators themselves, and unravel the mysteries of these borderland beasts." Brother Thomas, initially taken aback, accepted the charge with a mix of duty and skepticism. He had dedicated his life to the study of scripture and theology, not the whimsical fantasies of artists. Yet, he trusted in Lady Eleanor's judgment and recognized the potential importance of her inquiry. He began his investigation in the monastery library, poring over illuminated manuscripts, meticulously documenting the appearance and placement of each monstrous figure. He sought patterns, connections, and any clues that might shed light on their purpose. Soon, his investigation led him beyond the monastery walls. He embarked on a journey, armed with Lady Eleanor's commission and a growing curiosity, eager to uncover the secrets hidden within the illuminated bestiaries of the borderlands. His first stop was the workshop of Master Geoffrey, a renowned illuminator known for his skill in depicting both the sacred and the profane. Brother Thomas hoped that Master Geoffrey could provide insight into the artistic techniques and symbolic language used in creating these creatures. Master Geoffrey, a man of meticulous craft and discerning eye, welcomed the monk with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. He knew the power of images, and he suspected that these monsters held more significance than simple decoration. "These are not mere doodles, brother," Master Geoffrey explained, his fingers stained with the vibrant hues of his pigments. "Each creature, each flourish holds a story, a lesson, a warning." And so began Brother Thomas's journey into the heart of the medieval imagination, a quest to decode the unsettling bestiary of the borderlands and uncover the hidden meanings behind the monsters of the medieval world. He now understood the task was far more important than he previously believed. Brother Thomas embarked on his journey towards Cîteaux, the mother house of the Cistercian order. Its reputation for rigorous discipline and scholarly pursuits preceded it, promising a wealth of knowledge regarding the illuminated manuscripts that concerned Lady Eleanor. The scriptorium was a hive of activity. Monks, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of oil lamps and filtered sunlight, meticulously copied sacred texts. The air hummed with the rhythmic scratching of quills against parchment, a symphony of devotion and scholarship. Brother Thomas sought out Master Geoffrey, a renowned illuminator known for his skill and artistry. The master was a man consumed by his craft, his hands perpetually stained with the hues of the earth. His small workshop was filled with an array of tools and materials. The foundation of any good illumination is the parchment itself, Master Geoffrey explained, his voice raspy from years of inhaling pigment dust. He demonstrated the painstaking process of transforming animal skin into a smooth, receptive surface. And then the colors, Master Geoffrey continued, gesturing to a collection of meticulously labeled jars. Each pigment holds a secret, a story of its origin. Lapis lazuli from the distant east, cinnabar from the mines of Spain. Each imparts its essence to the page. With practiced precision, Master Geoffrey demonstrated the application of gold leaf, a technique that transformed mere decoration into a radiant symbol of divine light. The thin sheets of gold, almost ethereal, clung to the parchment, catching the light with celestial brilliance. But what of these creatures, Master Geoffrey? Brother Thomas inquired, pointing to a page teeming with fantastical beasts. What purpose do they serve? Master Geoffrey paused, his gaze distant. Some say they are mere whimsy, decorations to fill the empty spaces. Others believe they are warnings, reminders of the darkness that lurks beyond the light of God. The truth, I suspect, lies somewhere in between, he continued. These creatures are born from our fears, our anxieties, and our imagination. They are a reflection of the world around us, twisted and exaggerated, but often containing a grain of truth. Brother Thomas listened intently, absorbing the master's words. He began to see the monsters not as mere decorations, but as a complex language, a visual code that held the secrets of the medieval mind. Consider the bestiaries, Master Geoffrey said, pulling out a large, leather-bound volume. They describe not only real animals, but also creatures of myth and legend. Each beast is imbued with symbolic meaning, a moral lesson waiting to be deciphered. As the monastery bells tolled, signaling the end of the day, Brother Thomas felt a shift in his perspective. The monsters, once unsettling and incomprehensible, now seemed to whisper secrets, inviting him to unravel their mysteries. His journey had just begun. Brother Thomas wrestled with the basilisk. Not a physical beast, of course, but the creature's image, staring back at him from the vellum. It was a creature of pure terror, born, they said, from a rooster's egg hatched by a serpent. A single glance could bring instant death. But why was such a thing deemed worthy of depiction within sacred texts? These hybrids, Brother Thomas, Master Geoffrey explained, they are ancient. The basilisk, the manticore, even the griffin, echoes of stories whispered since before Rome. The pagans saw them as powerful beings, symbols of strength or guardians of treasure. But the church sees only perversion. He read of Pliny's accounts of the basilisk, its deadly gaze capable of withering all life. A natural marvel, rendered monstrous through superstition and fear. Yet the church had embraced this terror, weaving it into their tapestry of sin. In the margins of the psalters, the basilisk became a visual sermon against pride. Its deadly gaze mirrored the arrogance that blinds men to their own sin. A reminder that even the smallest creature could bring about the downfall of the soul. The manticore now, that's greed and treachery, Geoffrey explained. The face of a man, suggesting reason and intellect, masking the savage heart of a beast. The scorpion's tail, a promise of hidden venom. It is a creature of deceit, promising much but delivering only pain. The manticore became a symbol of the hypocrite, the wolf in sheep's clothing. In the manuscripts, it often appeared near depictions of Judas, a visual association that reinforced its connection to betrayal and avarice. The griffin, though often depicted as fierce, held a more ambiguous position. A hybrid of eagle and lion, it possessed both earthly and celestial power. But even this noble creature was not immune to the church's moralizing gaze. Griffins, guarding treasures, became symbols of miserliness, a warning against the corrupting influence of wealth. Even strength and majesty could be tainted by greed. But remember, Brother Thomas, Geoffrey cautioned, these creatures are not static. Their meaning shifts. A basilisk in one manuscript might represent heresy in another, simply the dangers of the unknown. We shape them as much as they shape us. Brother Thomas meticulously recorded his findings. The monsters were not mere embellishments, but potent symbols, reflecting the complex interplay between classical myth, Christian doctrine, and the ever-present anxieties of medieval life. They were gargoyles of the soul, reflecting the darkness within and the constant struggle against temptation. Much like the stone gargoyles perched atop cathedrals, these creatures served a dual purpose: to repel evil and to remind the faithful of the dangers that lurked just beyond the sanctuary walls. A constant, visual sermon carved into the very fabric of their world. He began to see them not as mere monsters, but as mirrors reflecting the medieval soul. Fear, faith, temptation, and hope, all were etched into their grotesque features, waiting to be decoded. Brother Thomas found himself increasingly drawn to the more ambiguous figures lurking within the margins of the illuminated texts. Among these, the Green Man, a face wreathed in foliage, presented a particular enigma. Unlike the clearly demonic or didactic beasts, the Green Man seemed to embody a different kind of power, a connection to the natural world that predated Christian iconography. He sought out Master Geoffrey, eager to glean his perspective on the Green Man's presence in the manuscripts. "Brother," Geoffrey began, his fingers stained with the hues of the earth, "these images are echoes, whispers of the old ways, the pagan beliefs that still linger in the hearts of the people, even after centuries of conversion." Geoffrey elaborated on the persistence of pre-Christian traditions. He spoke of the reverence for trees, for springs, for the spirits believed to inhabit the forests and fields. These beliefs, though officially condemned by the Church, continued to thrive in the rural communities, finding their way into art and folklore. Brother Thomas recalled seeing such images himself, not just in manuscripts, but carved into the very stones of churches, integrated into the architecture almost as if to appease the old gods while embracing the new faith. He ventured into the countryside, seeking to understand how these pagan echoes resonated within the lives of the common folk. He observed their customs, their superstitions, the ways in which they blended Christian beliefs with older, more primal traditions. He listened to the stories they told, tales of mischievous spirits, of woodland creatures with magical powers, of the protective presence of the Green Man, who ensured the fertility of the land. One farmer explained that while they prayed to God for a bountiful harvest, they also left offerings for the spirits of the field, just in case. It was a pragmatic approach, a hedging of bets against the uncertainties of life. Returning to Master Geoffrey, Brother Thomas shared his observations. "So these images," he posited, "they are not merely pagan remnants, but rather a synthesis, a blending of two worlds." Geoffrey nodded. "Indeed, brother, the artists, often coming from these rural communities themselves, understood the power of these symbols. They knew how to weave them into the fabric of Christian art, sometimes overtly, sometimes subtly, to create a richer, more resonant tapestry of meaning." When he returned to Lady Eleanor, Brother Thomas presented his findings. He explained the persistence of pagan beliefs, the role of folklore, and the ways in which artists had incorporated these elements into their work. "The Green Man, your ladyship," he concluded, "is not a demon to be feared, nor a god to be worshipped, but a symbol of the enduring connection between humanity and the natural world. A reminder that even within the embrace of Christianity, the echoes of the old ways still resonate." Lady Eleanor pondered his words. She understood the political implications of suppressing pagan beliefs, but she also recognized the value of understanding them. These beliefs were part of the fabric of her people's lives, and to ignore them would be to misunderstand the very kingdom she ruled. The inclusion of the Green Man and similar figures, she surmised, was perhaps a pragmatic decision, a way to ease the transition to Christianity, to bridge the gap between the old ways and the new. It was a reminder that even in the most devout of hearts, the whispers of the past could still be heard. Brother Thomas found himself increasingly preoccupied with the dragon, not as a singular beast, but as a multifaceted symbol of chaos, lurking in the corners of illuminated apocalypses. The sheer variety of its depictions was staggering, from serpentine leviathans to winged horrors breathing fire, each iteration seemingly tailored to stoke the fears of its audience. Master Geoffroy, ever the pragmatist, approached the dragon from a technical standpoint. He explained the challenges of rendering scales that conveyed both menace and beauty, the careful balancing of colors to evoke both dread and awe. "The dragon is a canvas for our deepest fears," he said, "but also for our greatest artistic skill." Thomas pondered the dragon's biblical roots. It was, after all, the embodiment of the serpent in Eden, the ancient foe of mankind. In the book of Revelation, it was the red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns, cast down from heaven by Michael and his angels, a terrifying harbinger of the end times. The dragon in apocalyptic imagery was far more than just a monster. It was a symbol of the Antichrist, the ultimate enemy of God. Its defeat represented the triumph of good over evil, a comforting promise in the face of overwhelming chaos. The anxieties of the age undoubtedly fueled the dragon's prominence. The priest spoke of the recent outbreaks of disease, whispers of divine punishment for the sins of man. The dragon, in this context, became a tangible representation of the pestilence, a scaly, winged demon bringing death and despair. The Black Death, though still decades away, cast a long shadow. The fear of widespread death and suffering permeated society, and the dragon became a vessel for these fears, a symbol of the unseen forces that could decimate entire communities. Master Geoffroy pointed out subtle variations in the dragon depictions. Some had cloven hooves, linking them to demonic imagery. Others had human-like faces, suggesting the corruption of humanity itself. Each detail was a clue, a piece of the puzzle in understanding the dragon's symbolic weight. Thomas began to see the dragon not as a singular entity, but as a complex amalgamation of fears, anxieties, and religious beliefs. It was a symbol that could be adapted and reinterpreted to reflect the specific concerns of a community, a warning against the dangers of sin and the ever-present threat of chaos. Upon his return to Poitiers, Brother Thomas presented his findings to Lady Eleanor. He explained the dragon's dual role as a symbol of both evil and divine justice, its connection to apocalyptic anxieties and the fear of disease. He showed her examples of dragons from various manuscripts, highlighting the subtle variations in their depictions. Eleanor listened carefully, her keen intellect grasping the complexities of the dragon's symbolism. "So," she said, "the dragon is not merely a monster to be feared, but a reflection of our own internal struggles, our fears made manifest. Brother Thomas nodded. Indeed, my lady. The dragon is a reminder of the ever-present battle between good and evil, both within ourselves and in the world around us. And as the image of St. George, the dragon slayer, was a popular and familiar one, it served as a testament to humanity's desire to overcome their fears and embrace hope in the face of darkness. The dragon, ultimately, was a reminder that even in the darkest of times, the light could still prevail. Brother Thomas found himself increasingly drawn to the bestiaries, those curious volumes filled with descriptions of animals, both real and fantastical. He realized they were more than just catalogs. They were moral mirrors, reflecting the virtues and vices of humankind onto the animal kingdom. He sought out Master Geoffrey once more, eager to understand the artistic choices behind the illustrations. "Look here, brother," Master Geoffrey said, tracing the outline of a lion. "The lion, king of beasts, is often depicted as courageous and noble, a symbol of Christ himself. See how the gold leaf emphasizes its regal bearing." But not all creatures were paragons of virtue. The fox, often depicted feigning death to lure unsuspecting prey, represented deceit and cunning. Brother Thomas understood that these images served as cautionary tales, warning against the dangers of sin and temptation. Beyond the monastery walls, similar lessons were imparted through exempla, short moral tales often featuring animals as central characters. Traveling minstrels would weave these stories into their performances, bringing them to life for the largely illiterate populace. Brother Thomas delved deeper, consulting the Physiologus, an ancient text that formed the basis for many medieval bestiaries. He noted how each animal was imbued with symbolic meaning, often drawn from biblical or classical sources. Even the grotesque figures adorning cathedrals and castles served a purpose. These creatures, often hybrids of different animals, were not merely decorative. They were reminders of the chaos and darkness that lurked outside the boundaries of the church and society. Lady Eleanor, ever the astute observer of human nature, understood the power of these stories. She recognized that the animals were merely stand-ins for human characters, allowing for the exploration of complex moral issues in a relatable and engaging way. The centaur, a creature of both intellect and bestial instinct, presented a more nuanced challenge. Brother Thomas wrestled with its symbolism, recognizing it as a representation of the constant struggle between reason and desire within the human soul. Master Geoffrey explained how the vivid colors and exaggerated features of the illustrations were crucial for capturing the attention of the viewer, particularly those who could not read. "The images speak where words cannot, brother," he said, carefully mixing a batch of crimson pigment. Even biblical stories were often illustrated with animals to make them more accessible to the common folk. Noah's Ark, for example, was a powerful symbol of salvation and the importance of obedience to God's will. Brother Thomas began to incorporate these lessons into his own teachings. He used the bestiary as a tool to impart moral values to the novice monks, illustrating the virtues of humility, diligence, and piety through the examples of animals both real and imagined. Brother Thomas prepared to present his findings to Lady Eleanor. He now understood that these monsters were not mere decorations but powerful symbols that shaped the moral landscape of the medieval world. They were visual aids for the illiterate, reminders of moral boundaries, and reflections of the hopes, fears, and beliefs of an entire society. Brother Thomas had begun to suspect that the monsters were not always intended as straightforward symbols of evil or didactic tools. Some, he believed, held a sharper edge, a subversive undercurrent that challenged the established order. He sought out Master Jeffrey, eager to discuss his evolving theory. "Master Jeffrey, consider this. Might some of these creatures be more than mere warnings? Might they be critiques?" Master Jeffrey paused, considering the question. "Critiques, Brother Thomas. It is a dangerous path to tread, but not an impossible one. The margins are a liminal space. Rules are looser there." Brother Thomas returned to the manuscripts, his eyes now attuned to the subtle nuances of rebellion. He found examples: a fox in a friar's habit preaching to a flock of geese, a clear jab at the hypocrisy of some within the clergy. To further understand the undercurrents of dissent, Brother Thomas ventured into a nearby village, seeking voices outside the cloistered walls. He found a wandering artisan carving grotesque figures from wood. "Tell me," Brother Thomas began, "why carve such strange things?" The artisan eyed him warily. "Strange? They're honest. More honest than the pretty saints the nobles like to commission. They show what people really think, what they fear, what they hate. Brother Thomas pressed him further. "Hate? What do people hate?" The artisan spat on the ground. "Taxes, lords, the church sometimes, anyone who takes more than they give." He held up a carving, a grotesque figure with exaggerated features mocking a nobleman. "This one. This is for the Lord who takes half our harvest and leaves us to starve." Back in the scriptorium, Brother Thomas found new meaning in the images. He saw animals enacting mock trials, reversing the roles of predator and prey, a visual representation of social upheaval. He began to carefully document these instances, recognizing that the monsters, in some cases, served as a veiled form of protest, a way for the marginalized to voice their discontent without risking outright rebellion. He knew that when he returned to Lady Alina, he would not only present a study of fear and faith, but also a glimpse into the simmering resentments and hidden acts of defiance that pulsed beneath the surface of medieval society. Leaving the confines of the monastery behind, Brother Thomas sought the voices of the common folk. He ventured into the countryside, eager to understand how these monsters resonated with those who lived far from illuminated pages and scholarly debates. His first encounter was with a woman named Agnes, who spoke of the gargoyle, not as a mere decoration on a church, but as a protector, warding off storms and malevolent spirits from her village. "They might look fearsome, brother," she rasped, "but they guard us from what is truly wicked." He shared meals with farmers, listening to tales whispered by the fire. One man recounted a legend of a dragon that lived in a nearby forest, demanding tribute in the form of livestock. It was not just a monster from a storybook, but a symbol of the Lord's oppressive taxes and the constant threat of starvation. A young boy, tending his family's fields, spoke of the lamia, a creature that preyed on children. He described her not as a hideous beast, but as a beautiful woman with serpentine legs, a seductive danger that lured unsuspecting souls into the forest. Many villagers carried amulets, small carvings depicting grotesque faces. These were not objects of worship, but talismans meant to ward off the evil eye and other malevolent forces. They were a form of protection, a tangible defense against the unseen dangers that lurked in the shadows. In the taverns, Brother Thomas heard bawdier tales. The green man, often depicted as a leafy face, was not a fearsome monster, but a symbol of fertility and the untamed power of nature, celebrated in song and ribald jest. Brother Thomas meticulously documented these encounters, noting the stark contrast between the academic interpretations of the monsters and the beliefs of the common people. The creatures, it seemed, held different meanings depending on who was looking at them. He watched children playing, mimicking the monsters they had heard stories of. They were not just frightening figures, but characters in their games, embodiments of chaos and adventure, a way to explore their own fears and desires. He found that for some, the monsters were simply part of the landscape, woven into the fabric of their lives. The shepherd, watching over his flock, saw the basilisk not as a creature of pure evil, but as a reminder of the ever-present dangers of the world, a test of faith and vigilance. Brother Thomas began to see that the illuminated monsters, while reflecting theological and moral lessons, also tapped into a deeper well of popular belief and folklore. They were a shared language, understood by both the educated elite and the unlettered masses. He prayed for discernment, seeking to reconcile the learned interpretations with the lived experiences of the people. He realized that the monsters were not just symbols, but living embodiments of the hopes, fears, and anxieties of medieval society. With a heart full of stories and a satchel brimming with notes, Brother Thomas turned his steps back towards Aquitaine. He carried with him the voices of the people, a vital piece of the puzzle in understanding the beasts of the borderlands. Brother Thomas, his heart buoyed by the knowledge gathered on his journey, returned to Master Geoffroy. The weight of his satchel felt lighter than the burden of uncertainty he had carried weeks before. Master Geoffroy welcomed him, his face etched with the weariness of countless hours spent hunched over his craft, but his eyes held a spark of curiosity as he gestured for Brother Thomas to enter. Brother Thomas unfurled his scrolls, the parchment crackling softly in the dim light of the workshop. He began to recount his journey, sharing the tales he had gathered from monks, peasants, and artisans alike. Master Geoffroy listened intently, his brow furrowed in concentration as he examined Brother Thomas's meticulous drawings. He recognized the creatures, of course, but the interpretations offered by the monk intrigued him. The basilisk, Brother Thomas began, is not merely a symbol of evil, as the theologians claim. The common folk fear it as a bringer of disease, a reflection of their own vulnerability to the unseen forces that plague their lives. Master Geoffroy nodded, and the artist, in rendering it with such meticulous detail, such shimmering scales, taps into that very fear. The gold leaf is not just decoration, brother. It elevates the beast, makes it seem both terrifying and alluring. They moved on to the grotesque hybrids, those bizarre combinations of human and animal that populated the margins. These, Brother Thomas observed, seem to represent the baser instincts, the temptations that lurk within us all. Master Geoffroy chuckled softly. Perhaps, or perhaps they are a way for the artist to poke fun at those in power, to show the world that even kings and bishops are, at heart, just beasts driven by earthly desires. Brother Thomas considered this, the weight of his rosary beads a familiar comfort in his hand. The idea that these creatures could be instruments of subtle rebellion was a revelation. Together they delved deeper, dissecting the artistic techniques, the subtle color choices, the deliberate placement of each creature within the page. They explored the historical context, the religious beliefs, and the social anxieties that might have given rise to these fantastical beings. As the days turned into weeks, Brother Thomas meticulously compiled their findings, crafting a comprehensive interpretation of the monsters. He saw them now not as mere decorations, but as potent symbols, reflecting the complex worldview of the medieval age. Master Geoffrey watched him work, a quiet satisfaction settling over him. He had helped to unlock the secrets of the monsters, to give voice to the silent language of symbols that whispered from the margins of the manuscripts. The journey had been long, the discoveries profound. Brother Thomas stood ready to present his findings to Lady Eleanor, the woman whose curiosity had set him on this path. He hoped the insights gleaned from his travels would satisfy her quest for knowledge. Lady Eleanor listened, her keen eyes never leaving Brother Thomas. She had entrusted him with a task that many would have dismissed as frivolous, but she sensed a deeper meaning behind the proliferation of these fantastical creatures. Brother Thomas began his presentation, carefully unveiling the complex symbolism woven into the monsters' forms. "These creatures, Your Grace," he explained, "are not merely decorative. They are reflections of our deepest fears, our moral struggles, and our societal anxieties." He spoke of the basilisk, a symbol of sudden death and spiritual corruption, its gaze capable of turning men to stone. He described the griffin, a guardian of treasure, representing the duality of earthly power and spiritual aspiration. He delved into the multifaceted nature of the dragon, a creature that embodied chaos and destruction, but also served as a reminder of the constant battle between good and evil. He cited instances where dragons appeared as guardians, protectors of sacred knowledge, not always harbingers of darkness. Lady Eleanor pondered his words. "So, these monsters," she mused, "are not merely the product of idle fancy, but tools used to instruct, to warn, and even to subtly challenge the established order." "Indeed, Your Grace," Brother Thomas replied. "They serve as visual aids for the illiterate, reminders of moral boundaries, and outlets for societal anxieties. The gargoyles, for example, were not merely architectural features, but also visual warnings against sin." He recounted his conversations with Master Geoffrey, the illuminator, explaining how the artists often imbued their creations with hidden meanings, subtly criticizing the clergy or mocking the follies of the court. A faint smile played on Lady Eleanor's lips. So, even in the sacred confines of the monastery, the human spirit finds a way to express itself, to question, to challenge. Rising from her throne, Lady Eleanor addressed Brother Thomas. "You have done well, brother. You have shown me that these monsters are not mere figments of imagination, but mirrors reflecting the soul of our age." Brother Thomas bowed his head, a quiet sense of accomplishment washing over him. He had embarked on this journey with skepticism, but he now understood the power of these visual narratives, their ability to shape beliefs and reflect the complexities of the human condition. The monsters of the medieval manuscripts lived on, their images etched into the collective memory of Europe. They served as a reminder that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit could find expression, using art to confront its fears, explore its moral dilemmas, and challenge the boundaries of its world. Their legacy endured, whispering tales of faith, fear, and the enduring power of imagination.